Hi everybody, this is Academic English Skills and this is the first video we're doing about critical thinking. There will be other videos about critical thinking and critical writing coming very soon. Okay, so this is really an introduction to critical thinking, which is a very common element of assignments, especially at higher levels. And so, it's something to be aware of and something to try and get to grips with. But before we kind of do get too critical, let's just make sure we're clear about the different terms. So critical thinking basically relates to a questioning approach to what you read or hear. Now, the thing about critical thinking, it does not need to be anything mysterious. You critical think every day. When you decide about what to wear, what to eat, you're making decisions, weighing up certain situations, weighing up information you have before you make a decision. And it's very similar to what you're going to do when you critically think in your academic work. When we talk about critical analysis, well, that's breaking down information into smaller parts. When you analyze anything, you break something down and see how the different parts join together. So here you might be just analyzing information. And critical evaluation is what we do at the end. So you've got all the information, you weigh it up, you compare it, you contrast it, you make a decision, and then you make a comment on this. And the comment is your criticality, but the evaluation is weighing up of different things. So critical thinking, what does it involve? Okay, well, we stand back and think about all the elements of a topic. Okay, see how they're connected, see how things affect each other. There could be an issue, it could be a concept you've got to look at. It could be a news topic. Critical thinking also involves not taking everything at face value. This is important, and it's something that students find tricky because often people think if it's published in a journal, then it has to be, the truth and the only truth that's out there, but it's not exactly true, because you'll find many journal articles disagreeing with each other. And if that happens, well, who's to say who's right and who's wrong? Okay, so don't accept everything at face value just because it's published. And linked to that is the necessity to look at things from different viewpoints, different perspectives, a perspective that is different to your own viewpoint as well. That's important. We need to be aware of bias. You also need to explain the relevance of what you've written. So when you're thinking about it, how does this relate to your assignment? Can the reader see how you're answering the question? And it also involves the last thing, which is evaluation of the strengths and limitations. So not just the weaknesses, the strengths, both of them, before making judgments. Okay. Now there's a picture on the screen, and what is it? What can you see? Okay, you can see some kind of animal, I imagine. But is it a rabbit, or is it a duck or a bird? Well, the answer is yes, it's both. It's both a rabbit, if you have its ears on the left and its mouth on the right, and it's a duck if you have its beak on the left and then its eyeball in the middle facing towards the left side. Now, because you can see different things here, this tells us that we can see different perspectives. And how could you argue who is right and who is wrong here when it's just a different interpretation? And that is a lot of what critical thinking involves. Often you're not arguing, you're not saying one thing is right and one thing is wrong. You're saying that one thing, makes more sense to you in your assignment. There's a general model to generate critical thinking. So you start from the descriptive parts. So think of description as like background information, the information that anyone can find. And then from the description, you go into more analysis and then the evaluation. So you can't have analysis and evaluation without the description, because you need something to, to focus on and relate back to. But you can have description without the analysis and evaluation now. However, if you just do that, you'll lose marks if you're being told to write critically. But basically, these things, you need them in your essays and assignments, all of them. Now, we can think critically even before you actually write your essay, because there are different steps that we can look at from the start. So when you're given the assignment title, think about the focus. What is it asking you to do? What is your viewpoint? What's your initial position? Engage with the subject, but also be open to changing your mind as you read more sources, or at least to the possibility. Where are you going to find the evidence? Do you know particular journals that are going to help you, particular websites, particular books? And engage in the debate. Remember, most assignments are not really yes or no assignments. If they were, they'd be too easy to write. Often they're going to be a mixture of yes but no, or no but yes, half and half. It's not so much black and white, there's a lot of grey. Also think how you'll persuade the reader. What reasons will you be able to give? And also think about how you're going to structure it. So this is even before you've even put pen to paper in terms of writing the assignment. So weigh up the evidence first. It's important. Don't rush into being critical. It's tempting, but try not to. Now, remember, obviously, you need to make sure your sources are reliable and authoritative or academic. So the CRAP test, C-R-A-A-P, is a good one to do. If you're not sure about that, have a look online, the CRAP test. It's a terrible acronym, but it's a useful way of weighing up if your sources are academic. Now, when you're reading the sources, does the evidence actually make sense to you? It might not. And if it doesn't, then those doubts could lead to you finding fault in the evidence. It's definitely possible. And if you're persuaded by the evidence, how are you persuaded? Is there enough evidence to persuade you? What I mean is, don't be persuaded just because the language is quite, academic or quite fancy or quite emotional as well. Be persuaded by facts. Don't be persuaded by bias arguments that don't show awareness of the opposite side. A reading grid is a very simple way to help you keep track of your analysis and the research you've done. And these are not set in stone. You can, devise your own quite simply. So for this one, we've got the author, the title, the topic, the main theme, the strengths and weaknesses, how you would use it, and any further thoughts. Now, going along the example I've got here, so you've got the book that you've got the information from, what the book's about, what the main idea of the book is or has, the strengths or weaknesses from what you've read. Now, remember, you might not read the whole book. In fact, you probably won't read the whole book, let's face it, but from what you've read is part of the book. Yeah. Next one, column number 5, how to use, is maybe one of the most important columns of the reading grid, because this will be blank to begin with. This will have no information at the start, but the idea is to make links between the sources and the ideas as you go, as you read. So here, got some ideas. How would you use it compared to Jones and Ali? Show agreements with other sources. Again, so you're making notes, you're making the connections even before you begin to write the assignment out fully. So critical thinking leading to making connections. And often, teachers often say that the writing is too descriptive. It's not analytical, or there's no analysis in it. And it can be difficult to know what they mean. But remember, a few slides ago, I mentioned descriptive writing as being background information. So if we just go through this, we can see some differences between the two types of writing. So descriptive writing will explain a theory, but critical writing will then really show why the theory is relevant. Descriptive writing can explain how something works, but the critical part of that will explain why it works in a certain way and what effect it has. Descriptive writing is there when you give all the detail of something, but criticality goes further and looks at the detail in terms of its significance. And are some details more important than others? Very possible. Descriptive writing states the order in which things happen. You know, things happen in this way, like a process. But critical writing might look at why things happen this way. What would happen if they, were in a different order, for example? Would a different order make it better? Impossibly. This might be useful for looking at a policy or a way things are done in the workplace. And the descriptive writing will present views using evidence. Notice that is not critical, that's just descriptive, presenting your viewpoint with evidence from a source. That's just descriptive. But the criticality will explain the relevance of the views and evaluate the strengths and weaknesses. Now, this last point, this is what we're going to be looking at in more detail in the next video about critical writing, because this is really important for your, essays. So criticality, remember, university writing expects you to debate different views from different sources. And the higher you go in terms of academic level, whether it's third year undergrad or postgrad, first year, you're expected to use different sources, show different viewpoints. You don't need to agree with everything you read, of course, but don't ignore them, because you need to show awareness of why something does not make sense, as much as the ones that do make sense. Also, point number 3 is states that if you do disagree or agree, you need to say why. Why is the important word in all criticality? Why? Okay. And also notice that you can still agree. You don't have to be negative. Criticality does not mean being negative, which is different to how it's maybe used, in the outside world, where if you're critical of somebody, you're basically sort of attacking them or being negative towards them. Yeah. But with criticality in writing, you can say why something makes sense as well as something that doesn't make sense. So when you say why, connect it to the focus of your assignment. Everything you write should be relevant to the question you're trying to answer. And if it's not, then maybe don't use it. So this also means you have to stay relevant and logical. Okay. 2 things. It's easy to go off on a tangent. It's easy to get lost with some of the ideas, especially when you find them really interesting. Come back, an assignment will have different parts to it, so don't write too much on one part and not enough on another. Remember, any comments you make will be your criticality. So the comments you make, when you've weighed up evidence, you've got an evaluation. What you write is your evaluation, or your comments is your criticality. Okay. And we're going to look at those ideas in the next video. So just a reminder, I have the Spotify podcast, which is academic writing in 3 minutes. It's where I condense things down into 3-minute little bite-sized chunks. So please have a listen on that. Please subscribe to this channel. And obviously we've got the Instagram page as well. Okay, thanks for listening, and I hope you found it useful.